I think a lot of people do think that I like just have this super pampered, luxurious life. And I tell people all the time, like, I would trade places with you any day just to be able to clock out. Like, I can't, even when I'm on vacation. There's never been a vacation I've taken that I do zero work. Never. Ever.
Welcome to the Superintendent's Hangout, where we discuss topics in education, charter schools, life in general, and not necessarily in that order. I'm your host, Dr. Sharetta. Come on in and hang out. In this episode, I was privileged to sit down for a conversation with Shana Morgan, owner of Morgan's Monograms. You can find them at morgansmonograms.com. They're located in La Mesa, California. Reading from their website, Morgan's Monograms is a leader in customized embroidery services. Opened in 1983, and little asterisks on that. Shana and I talk about the significance of 1983, which is the first year that she drew income, and it's reported on her Social Security statements. So you have to listen to the episode to hear the joke behind that. Morgan's was already poised at the top of the embroidery industry with cutting-edge technology, which we continue to provide in every project we work on today. So this is a business that's been around for 41 years, but it hasn't all been easy. It hasn't all been lucrative. It hasn't all been without stress, without crises, without turbulence, without turnover. Shana and I cover a wide range of topics, from the importance of young people working, staying busy, having a passion. We talk about the way that she believes she needs to treat all of the employees at Morgan's Monograms, what it means when a longtime employee moves, the realities of trying to be competitive in a market where so much of the work is now done remotely, overseas, and much, much more. Shana gives some really good, down-to-earth advice on how to start and run a business, and most importantly, talks about the fact that if you own your own business, you work 7 days a week and you never clock out. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Welcome, Shana. Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out for a little bit today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I'd like it if we could start with your origin story. Okay. I've known you a long time. We were kind of reminiscing and trying to count the years. It's probably...
I think it's about 18.
18. Mm-hmm. It's a long time from my early days as principal and, figuring out who we were going to get uniforms from. But you go way back before that even. So tell us about your upbringing and what your path has been and what brings you to this present moment.
Okay. Well, let's start. I'm a third generation San Diego native.
Very rare, by the way, to find those. Yeah,
my son's a fourth. So my grandmother was born in Chula Vista. My dad was born at Mercy Hospital. I was born at Kaiser. So my mom didn't move here until she was about 3, but my grandmother worked at San Diego State. My grandfather was a Marine. My other grandfather was a COO of Convair, which was this huge, airplane thing. So he was a really big deal. And my grandmother, actually, her family came from Chula Vista. They were one of the Californios that got land grants from Mexico. So they came from La Paz and got land grants in Chula Vista.
That's like 18-something. Late 1800s or something. Right?
Yeah, I think he actually came in the early 1900s. Okay. I don't know, but I didn't even know all of this super interesting stuff about that side of my family until there was like a museum exhibit. And I was like, wait, what? So yeah, I was born and raised here in San Diego, mainly La Mesa. I was raised by a single mom. My father was actually murdered when I was 3. So yeah, I was just raised with my mom and basically kind of a village type of thing. Like everyone in my family kind of raised me a little bit, my grandparents and my aunts. And because my mom started a embroidery company in 1983. So it was just me and her, and I had to sleep in a sleeping bag while she figured out how to use a computerized embroidery machine, because we were the first person in San Diego to have one, and no one knew how to use it.
Early 80s, right?
83. So my mom would just read the manual and cry. I don't know what I'm doing. So
And that was when we were entering commands or something, right?
Oh, yeah. It looked like the Commodore keyboard, like on the machine. And you had to do all these weird things like backspace, control, period. Like just totally old. So, but she obviously ended up mastering that. So basically, I just kind of was raised going there my whole life. I worked there my whole life. The business got really big. We went from just me and her to 52 employees at one point. And, you know, I just kind of like grew up around Helix, La Mesa. That's where our shop was. And that's basically where I'm from and my origin.
So talk to us a little bit about what that experience is like as a young kid. I'm always intrigued by the way that children see their parents, right? Your mom, single mom at a time when it might not have been as socially acceptable. And to also be a woman running a business,
right.
being a female entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. It was very rare.
That was very rare.
Yeah.
Did you realize that
yes,
was rare?
I did. Yeah. Because I mean, it was talked about all the time, and she was not taken seriously by a lot of people. She struggled for sure. People thought it was kind of cute. Like, oh, how cute. You know, you have your little sewing machine here, and, you know, and like no one really kind of understood that. And she definitely struggled, but my mom is one of those people that has like a really good personality. She's very outgoing, very sweet. So she just won people over. And then she literally was the only person in San Diego that had this machine. So, you know, sporting goods stores and things like that would kind of have to go to her to get things done. And so people definitely respected her very quickly. But it was a known thing that like, I don't think we knew anyone else that was a woman-owned, you know, business owner that I remember. Everyone that came in were all male business owners, everyone.
So she started out small, and then you said at one point you had 52 employees there. How did that trajectory go from just you and your mom and probably just a few people to 52? And then we'll talk about going from 52 to ultimately where you are now.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty wild. So it was definitely, you know, a journey. So we had one small little place on La Mesa Boulevard where she started with one little machine, and then no employees. Well, she started getting a lot of military accounts, doing flight suits. She did a lot of the flight suits for Top Gun, the first one.
For the movie.
Yeah, the movie. And she did lots of patches, and then she started doing all kinds of hats. And so she started really building accounts because, again, she was the only one. So from there, she was able to move down on University a little bit, University in like Massachusetts, and get small, like a little bit bigger, but still small. And she was able to get bigger machines. So now she had 2 machines, and she had one employee. And then it just gradually, like, things went really well. And then they were so crazy, she had to just keep buying more machines and keep hiring more employees. And then she would knock down one wall down there and, you know, add, because it was like a business park, not a business park, but kind of a building that had, business park. So one neighbor would move out, she'd take their space and knock down the wall and buy another machine. And then the next neighbor leaves, she knocks down the wall. So we were there for, oh gosh, probably like 15 years or something. And then my mom was, you know, her boyfriend was a entrepreneur, a very successful man. He's like, you know, you just need to buy your own building because she's renting. And they found this business park up on University that was 11 suites, 11 individual suites. And then they knocked all the walls down and made it one big, huge company. And the whole side was all that we got up to like 97 embroidery heads. So... And that there was, I think from like the late 90s into, well, I mean, right up until COVID, really, we were just always so extremely busy. But then, you know, we got up to 52. It's too many. You don't make money when everything goes to overhead. And by that time, there was competition. there was a lot of embroidery companies and coming in now. So my mom had to stay, price-wise competitive. And then when you're 52 employees and then the other guy's working out of his garage, right. So anyways, and then it just kept kind of getting worse. Like some of the, we just didn't have the profit margin to have all of these employees. So we had to kind of downsize. And then, different laws would come in or different things would happen. And it would just be like, okay, we got to like downsize a little bit more. And then, basically that's kind of how we kind of started downsizing little by little, but we couldn't go under 24 employees because it took that many to really make the company function. But, we had, our first employee from 1984 worked for us all the way until like, even when I opened up my new shop. My employee Carmen of 22 years just moved to Florida last month. So I'm like pretty devastated. We worked together every day for 22 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And all of our employees there, they were with us for like decades. So we had a really good, solid crew. Yeah. And then you want me to talk about how it went?
It's your story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
well, actually,
that's the exciting stuff when it turns left and right when we least expect it.
Yeah. Well, what we really least expected was my mom's like right-hand lady. Some things really come out, I guess, things in the dark come to the light type of thing, where we found out a bookkeeper who was very close to us had been doing things that were definitely not okay. So there was quite a problem there. You're talking someone who worked with us for like 25 years and was in control of everything that had to do with a lot of things. And just like overnight, it was like, so now I had to take over everything. I think this was in like 2011 or 12.
So money things.
Money thing.
Without getting specific.
Right. So we, that was huge. We were, I think we're in business probably around 30 years at that time. And then when I like kind of took over, you're in business 30 years and you go in and we had like $3,000 in our bank account and payroll in 9 days. And our payrolls were like 35 grand every 2 weeks. And I was like, what are we? So, I had to hit the ground running back then. And my mom was just so upset. And it really was hard for her to kind of like get over that. So I had to kind of take things over back then. And my mom was able to kind of slowly fade out. And I like took over the whole company back then with all the employees. And so I went through all those hurdles, it's hard to run a business, especially when you have a ton of employees. It's very difficult. So then after, everything was fine. And then COVID hit and we also had 2 floods at our shop and it was really bad. And of course my mom owned the building. So we were lucky we had FEMA because we had already had 2 floods before and learned that the insurance doesn't cover natural rainwater floods. So anyways, after all of that, my mom decided I'm going to retire. I'm done. I'm going to sell this building and retire, which is what she worked for. It's fine. At first, of course, it was very traumatizing to me because it's like, this company is my identity kind of thing. So this can't happen. And then COVID hit and then we couldn't go anywhere, do anything. And I was stuck at home. My mom went through with it for sure. And then I relaunched it as an LLC. And then I, got my employees together and I got some machines and we got a warehouse in Casa de Oro. And basically I kind of started over from scratch. However, we had this huge following of customers and everything. So I just made sure I kept on to all of our accounts and all of our people. And basically now so I took my employee Carmen, who was with me 22 years. So it was just me and her in the storefront. And then the production manager and stuff were down at the warehouse. Well, then I brought my son in about a year after that. And so, well, now Carmen left March 1st. Her and her husband moved to Florida. And so now it's me and my son. So it's like we went full circle. Like it was just me and my mom, and now it's just me and my son. And we went through this whole entire other life in between there. So
it's interesting. I think people wrongly assume that owning your own business is this liberating process that is going to result in you owning your own time and
oh gosh,
and it's
the opposite.
And now you don't have to work for quote unquote the man, you know. And in the end, you're working 7 days a week.
Oh yeah, you don't clock out.
You don't clock out.
No,
and
there's no
any
clocking
extra money goes back into the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really got to be a labor of love and a full-on commitment. You know, this isn't the tech sector where you invent something and then you hope that Google buys you.
Exactly.
You know, so how have you been able to maintain enough of a competitive edge all these years when you know there's competition locally from the dude in his garage, but there's also online competition.
Right.
There's almost on-demand stuff that you can buy on Amazon like a day or two later, right? At some level of quantity, right?
Yep.
How do you compete with that?
Well, I don't know that I can really compete with it. It's just what it is. I've definitely watched this whole industry change so many different times from what it was. I mean, this industry started when I was a little girl. The only way that you could embroider a logo onto a garment was by buying a paper tape. Okay. So, you know how the paper tapes and they got all the holes punched in it and it reads it.
Yeah.
So my mom was the first one to get a logo. It was called punching a tape back then. And people still call it punch a tape, and people have no idea what that even means.
You mean getting the logo set?
Getting the logo set up used to be called punching a tape because they would literally punch a tape. They'd put this on this big long wall, and they'd sit there and punch every little single hole so that the little projector thing at the bottom of the machine could read it. And then our first logo was the Old Globe Theater. I'll never forget. So I go from remembering paper tapes, and my mom had to order it. It was like in the Midwest. It was a whole big thing. It was super expensive. Yeah. We had to wait for it to come in the mail, and it was a whole thing. And then we went from that to computer digitizing logos. And then we were the first to have an in-house digitizer, which changed like everything.
Right?
And like, so people from all over, I mean, the country were calling us and sending us logos to have them set up because we were the only ones doing it. So after that, then you could start getting logos set up online, and they're doing it overseas. So we got rid of a whole art department. I mean, there was no reason for us. That guy actually took off and kind of had to go on his own because he couldn't even get a job anywhere because now there's no in-house digitizing really. So I watched that change, and then now everything is just, I mean, how do I compete? I don't know. Some people don't want to deal with the, I'm just going to type this in and see what happens.
So maybe it's relationships,
It's definitely relationships. Absolutely. And then, you know, we have longevity with so many different companies, schools, that, you know, our reputation is just, we're always going to make it happen. That's how I was raised. You know, my mom was no joke. Like, it's going to be done. It's going to be done the right way. You treat your customers like gold. You treat your employees like gold, and you make it work. And that's just how it's going to be. And
even if you're cutting back on your own spending and your own
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, there was times we couldn't even cash paychecks just to make sure everybody's on, you know, like owning a business is very difficult, especially when you get, you know, the whole employee side of things. It's like you have workers' comp, and then you have all these things going on, and all your numbers change, and you get kicked off of, now you're at State Fund, and they want $13,000 a month just to have workers' comp. And like a business like us cannot afford that. But we really had no choice. So just trying to cling on and dealing with all the things that come and go, with dealing with so many different people at one time and being responsible for all those people and their relationships with other people. And, just very difficult.
I was thinking in preparation for today about the journey we've gone through at Albert Einstein Academies with uniforms.
Yeah.
And the uniform logo. And the public probably doesn't totally know, but we've had like literally internal uniform battles with, and you know about some of them, with like rogue logos.
Oh,
and
yeah.
some staff members, I'll be very diplomatic, ex-staff members, trying to thinking that they could just send the business to someone else, a family member, what have you, a relative. For that very reason that you talk about, that it's on some level, it's fairly easy for those people to go, and then they outsource it somewhere, and then these uniforms show up. And I remember looking at things going, so it's always the yellow, by the way. It's always the gold on our logo.
Oh, yeah.
So you have the right gold thread. Or I'm not sure what they call it, but anyway, that's the right color.
It's topaz.
But okay, but there's a whole host of rogue uniforms.
Yeah.
There are far fewer of them, but once in a while I see one, and this is just a sign of how long I've been here, and I go, that's one of those.
Oh, yeah.
It's like when Coca-Cola tried to have New Coke in the 80s, and then for a little while you'd see the cans and you were like, that's how it feels, And so that whole
that is so funny.
The battle for the uniforms, right? And so we've partnered with you guys for a long time. Einstein's in its 22nd year, so you're almost ground zero for Einstein.
Yeah, I think I started with, I remember her name was Linda, and I think it was before you were here.
It is. So Linda.
And I think Barbara was still there, though.
Barbara's
like always been there.
So you've been more than 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, or just about 19 or 20. Yeah, it's a long time, right? And
no, yeah, you're right.
And
20.
And it's interesting just to reflect on that, and I never anticipated that uniforms could ever be a controversial thing, or logos could be controversial.
Right.
The very first, this is like an OG story, but before we started working with Morgan's, someone had these patches made online.
I remember them.
And they were iron-on patches.
Yep.
And the whole thing was like, hey, you get your blue polo or white polo shirt, and then you need to iron this thing on. But people didn't have irons, and they didn't. So then people were stapling them to their shirts and safety pin, and it was just a whole mess. So you when we joined up with you, it raised the uniform game up.
Yeah.
But then also life has changed, and the realities at Einstein have changed, right?
Yeah.
So we're now funding uniforms for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's ethically the right thing to do in a public school. Unfortunately, a lot of public schools or public charters that require uniforms don't pay.
Yeah.
So for some families, it's a hardship.
Yeah.
Some people can drop a couple $100 a semester. It's not a big deal. And other people, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So I know you've been great about working with us on that and getting uniforms and in people's hands. Can you talk about the impact of COVID? Because when I think about a business where a lot of your clients are schools, where obviously if no one's there in person, we don't need to buy kids uniforms. Car dealerships, sport, whatever. I think you have
all
sporting teams.
Oh yeah,
all those in-person stuff. It all went with restaurants and bars with uniforms. How did you survive COVID?
Well, that's a great question. I feel like looking back, those 2 years, 2020 and 2021, weren't even real to me. They didn't happen or something. They're foggy. Yeah. I'm like, how did I get through all that? I don't know. But I just will tell you that when specifically, let's talk about school uniforms, because the COVID thing affected every uniform. And when I say uniform, it could be a restaurant, car dealerships, all that kind of stuff. They wear a polo. And then I have breweries and bars that have merchandise and sell, all their logoed shirts and hats and all their things. So it was difficult, very difficult to get anything during when we kind of reopened. Stock was gone and everything. But for the school uniforms, it was specifically so insane because a lot of the kids hadn't gone to school in like almost 2 years, was it?
Yeah. Year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, something like that. So a couple things came into play. One, the old uniforms that those kids have no longer fit them. So they have nothing to come to school with because they literally have grown since their last uniforms. Yeah. Then we had the absolute insane national shortages of all youth and basically adult polo shirts and
thread even, right?
Thread. Oh, it was everything. Backing, thread. Everything was just like okay, and we got to do it right now, and then like, okay, we got it. Yeah, we got it. Yes. Okay. And then like, okay, tomorrow we're going to do it again. It was just such a weird thing, and then all of the online, stores that sell uniforms like French Toast and Land's End and all of them, they were totally out of everything. And now, mind you, they deal with schools all over the nation. So they were so overwhelmed. They were like not even returning phone. They were not even answering their phone after a while. They're just like, they're not here. And we don't know when they're coming. So, so then I, at that point had because a lot of people still order online. So not everyone comes into our shop, but everyone came into our shop that year. We had, literally like hundreds of people a day, and I couldn't order shirts, so people were going to Walmarts all over the county and seeing if they can find something, or Target. So people were coming in and bringing shirts to get embroidered. And I'm not even joking, like the entire floor in our place was just covered in plastic bags full of shirts. And so we're literally having dozens and dozens of families come in every day. And some of them were bringing in 5, 10 shirts a piece, 15 shirts. I literally was getting like 1,000 shirts a day to embroider, all individual families. So to keep track of like all those individual families and then throw to my production, like, we got to get these done. It was like, we had never been so overwhelmed. And then it's when we have like basically nobody. Now, if this had happened at the other shop with all my employees, it would have been smooth sailing. Right. It was like 4 of us trying to figure it all out.
So you watched your mom run the business for a long time. You gradually took over, as you've described. What have you done differently from what your mom did? And this is not to criticize your mom. Every generation, hopefully your son does things differently from what you do eventually, right? That's what we want.
Yeah.
What have you done differently as times have changed in running the business?
It's hard to say because she really was obviously like my 100% mentor and like raised me to be a certain way. So I like to hang on to actually a lot of her, old school ideals. A lot of times now I hear things like the customer's not always right, or, there's just kind of like a different way of dealing with certain things nowadays. And I always liked that because I always make sure maybe the customer isn't always right, but I'm going to at least make them feel like they are. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if it means I'm going to lose $20 or something, then, oh, well, you know what I mean? I'd rather save my reputation and the relationship than worry about dollars and cents. Yeah. And so my mom taught me that. So I always want to keep that. And I want my son to always keep that. Also treating, employees and customers the best you can. But I would say differently. I think my mom kind of burnt out and then was kind of like mentally and like emotionally kind of out of it. And I get it, but I try to like not get to that. And I try not to look at it as like, this is pure torture. I hate this. I try to like look at it like this is a blessing. I'm lucky. Like, I'm glad I'm here. So maybe that.
Do you ever take time off?
No. That is one thing. And my mom took lots of time off. She got to go on trips all the time. She got to say whatever she wanted. Like, she's like, I'm going to Vegas. We're going to Vegas. Like, her and her boyfriend used to go to Vegas like twice a month. They would go everywhere. But I was never allowed to go anywhere. It was not fair, for sure.
Because you had to stay back.
Because I had to do everything, right? So it got to the point where it was like, I went to the Caribbean in like 2010. And I hadn't gone on a vacation until 2016. So I didn't have any kind of vacation for 6 years. And then I took my son to Puerto Rico. And then I didn't go on vacation again for like another 6 years. So again, no clocking out.
Right.
Yeah.
What's your goal for your son? Like, so he's working with you now, and there's going to come a time. I know we kind of believe father time is not real, but it's a thing. So you're going to get to a point where you say, I'm transitioning out, and then you hand it eventually to him. I'm assuming, right? That's kind of the plan. Where, with your best motherly intentions, where would you see him in a perfect world in 30 years with the business?
It's so hard to say, to be honest. It is so hard to say. I know what he would like to do. And so with the whole employee thing, after dealing with that for so many years and the extensive nightmares that you go through, and then also you love it, but you hate it and it's hard. But also the costs of everything, especially here in California. So there's no way I'm ever going to go back to like this full production, because I wouldn't be able to, and I'd never be able to grow. So I think is what he wants to do is start a production.
What does that mean for the lay person? What do you mean start a production?
Like get, 25 massive embroidery machines and have all the silk screening machines in there, and you know what I mean? So we used to be like so humongous.
What's a return to where your mom was?
Yeah. But he hasn't lived that life. So I think that's kind of what he wants to do. I'm thinking, do whatever you want to do. That's fine with me. Just be prepared for kind of really long days and years. And, I don't know how well he would do with all the stress. We're definitely different personalities, but I think that he's really into, though, he's into things a little differently than I am. He's a little more into like fashion, and he actually wants to sew. He sews things, and he makes his own sweatshirt and then he embroiders it. So he's just he's kind of more into something.
Crafty.
Yeah, he's a little crafty, and then he knows how to actually run all the embroidery machines and run all the things and do artwork and things like that, where I always had employees to do all that part. So I was like the sales and keeping everything together and doing all the employees. So he's a little bit more hands-on with the actual productions and the actual things going on. So hopefully he'll be able to balance that along with maintaining relationships with customers and all that kind of stuff.
How have you been able to handle stress over all these years? I mean, what you just described is,
I know,
an incalculable amount of stress. I can imagine, right? Between floods and people making off with money, and
I think the workers' comp was probably the worst one. That one was really bad.
Just getting a bill for the workers' comp.
Well, I mean, there's just a whole time period of just fraud that affected a lot of people. I think they've tightened things up a little bit now.
So wrongful claims by employees.
Wrongful, and it being like groups of people, right? So like one does it, and then before you know it, it's all three of the best friends that eat lunch together. They all have, so
they all have repetitive stress.
Yeah, they
injuries.
all fell in the bathroom and needed an ambulance. I don't know. I don't remember. There were so many different instances, but it's just that whole, then, your insurance drops you. So then it got to a point where if you even have more than one workers' comp claim, your insurance drops you, and you have to have insurance. So you have to go to state fund. And it was just 5 times the amount of what regular workers' comp was. And I mean, I had to try to find PPOs and oh my God, it was such a nightmare. And it lasted 3 years. So every payroll was just because your workers' comp is based off your payroll. So, and we had to pay all these other things, and every payroll, for years was like so stressful. You know, they're $35,000 to $40,000 every 2 weeks, and you're getting a bill for workers' comp for $13,000 on top of it. And then you have your accounts receivables and all the thing, you know, it's like you have to constantly make it work. That was probably like the hardest time for me. And I don't know how I got through it, to be honest.
So this podcast, we always try to return to education in some way. And actually, I found that most good conversations like this one eventually end up talking at some level about school or what you learned or what you didn't learn. It sounds like you were, you learned on the job.
Yes.
We were joking prior to hitting record that your Social Security statement goes all the way back to the early 80s. And I don't want to cast any accusations towards your mom, but that might count as child labor.
Probably.
So the federal government still took the money. Maybe
they saw my birthday.
Maybe the feds at that point were complicit in child labor too. That was the 80s. Not always even a bad thing, right? To have young kids or teenagers experiencing growing up in a business.
I will say that I was always much more advanced than everybody else in my class and like my group of friends. I was always on a whole other level than them. I had my own checkbook. I had my first car before anyone else. I had 2 jobs in high school. I always was like on it. You know, I had my first bank account when I was like 9 years old. Right. I think growing up in a business and my mom actually like saying, hey, you need to go help this, or here, did you do this? You know, and like watching it all happen all day, because that's where I went after school. Yeah. So I think that it actually was really beneficial for me personally.
It's interesting that you say that. I was talking to, I think, one of my brothers recently, and we were talking about reminiscing about when we were kids, like 10, 11, 12, and we had summer jobs, and we had, we cut the grass, or in the winter you had a snow day, because I'm from the East Coast. You had a snow day. You wake up, you're either going to sleep in, which in my house was not really that much of a possibility usually, or you're going to get up and you're going to go around the neighborhood with a shovel, and you're going to knock on doors, and you're going to say, hey, I'll shovel your driveway for $5 or $2 or whatever. And, you're young and strong, and you do it, and then you end up with $25 or something. It's like a king's ransom at the time. And I don't see young people doing that the same way now.
Right, not at all.
And you see enterprising 14, 15, 16-year-olds, they go get their work permit, they work in a chain, or my daughter's worked for the past 2.5 years in summers and stuff at Target, and it's been good. They're flexible, and they have such a big workforce that she's on call, and they can plug her in when she's home from college and those sorts of things. But it's different from, I had a dog walking business when I was like 12 years old, and I'm afraid of dogs. So that was its own. I'm not really afraid, but I remember I had a Chow Chow was the first client.
Though they're kind of mean.
They were mean, and I used to just take it and walk around the block and then tie it to a tree and stand away until the owner found me. Apologies to that Chow Chow. I don't think it's around anymore. But you grew up getting to see, doing that enterprising kind of work, but also seeing the inside, behind the scenes of how a business operates, right? How you balance your books, and how changes in the cost of materials are going to change your family's ability to pay the mortgage,
right?
So
life experience.
Did school prepare you at all for all of that, or was it kind of totally separate? Because my next question will be, what do you think we can do in schools to prepare the next generation to be entrepreneurs?
I think leadership roles is really important, because that also helps people with, life lesson and life experience. I personally, like when I was in high school, and like you're saying, when I was growing up, I was born in 1976, so I'm like 80s, 90s, early 90s. And yeah, like everyone basically had some sort of a job or some way to make money. Otherwise, because like our parents didn't like just give us money. Like if you wanted money, you're like, go get a job. Like, I don't care. And I mean that. And like chores, like I had chores. I had to do things in order to get money. You know, what my mom used to give me allowance, and I saved up all these coins, and I walked across the street to Gemco and I got these sandals that I wanted so bad. I was 5 years old and I saved up exactly $4. And I got there to the register and I'm like, I'm buying these. I walked out of the store with them on my feet. They were like those wooden candies with the strap. And I went clunking down the street. But when I got to the register, she's like, hey, it's like $4 something because there's sales tax. And I was like, what? I didn't know there was sales tax. So she actually paid the sales tax. Yeah. And then like I walked in, my mom's like, what are you doing? Oh my God, you went and bought something across the street? No, you can't do. But I think that like with schools, because I kind of looked at schools more like a competition thing. That was my whole thing. So I got into a competition with my boyfriend in high school's sister of like who could get the best GPA. Because she thought she was so much smarter than me, and she went to OLP before Helix, so she was like above me. So I was like, oh, really? Okay. So we went on a competition, and it was really great for me because I ended up getting 4.2. I won, and I think a lot of times now people take out, they don't want any competitiveness. They don't want really leadership roles or working. I don't even think people even think kids are not even, maybe not kids, but even teenagers really should have a job or work. And when I was growing up in school, you know, there was like a whole work office. Yeah. I don't know if you remember that. Like you go there and you get your work permit, or they would help you fill out applications. There was, you know, we're like 14, 15. I think it was 15. Yep. And I mean, it was encouraged. It was encouraged to get an after school job. It was encouraged to, I don't know, do stuff like that. I don't know. My son's going to be 25, so I'm not really sure where the schools are right now. Mm-hmm. I feel like it was kind of trending that way.
What advice would you give someone who is thinking about starting their own business, a young person, or maybe a mid-career change, and may have accurate and inaccurate ideas about what it means to run your own business?
Yeah. I would just say that they have to like learn to like work as hard as you can imagine to work. And also you're never going to clock out. Also, you have to have a really good, you know, a product of what you're selling. I've sadly seen people kind of come up with an idea and spend so much money and open it, but it wasn't very well thought out. There wasn't a true business plan. And then I've watched them fail at it, not because they weren't, you know, super into it and wanted to work and wanted to be successful, but there was there just wasn't an audience for it, and people weren't, you know, lining up to buy their product or whatever it might be. And then they lose it all, and then they invested all of that, and then now they're starting. So I would definitely say business plan, number one, lots of research, and just know that it's not going to be some easy type of thing. I mean, it's just not. And I'd start out very humble, and because I feel like an owner should be there. That's how I feel. Like, of course, there's going to come a time where, you know, you've earned, but I've also
earned your Vegas trips.
Yeah. I've also known a few owners that have started and things have gone well. And I mean, they're out of there like, whew. Like they've never even really spent a whole 8-hour day at this, you know, whatever it may be, restaurant or something, because they started it. It got a good reaction, but they were never even there. Yeah. They weren't part of the team. They don't even know what's going on. And it always ends up a disaster. Then you find out your employees are running everything and they're doing everything that you don't know about. And you have to really be engaged and like 100% be part of everything that goes on.
It's interesting that you say that. The other night, I went to pick up my dry cleaning, and because of my hours are not always in alignment with the hours of a dry cleaning establishment. I don't know why, but dry cleaning seems to close early. I don't know. It doesn't fit in with my work day. So I found a place that's 24 hours. There's a kiosk.
Wow.
You go and it's a small chain here in San Diego. I guess I can say the name, Araya Cleaners, Araya. Anyway, I went. There's one near where I charge my car. I drop my dry cleaning off. Show up a couple days later, you put your code in, whatever, and then you swipe your card, and then the robotic thing opens the door and you get your clothes. Now, in between there, someone has to come take the clothes to wherever they launder them, do it, and bring them back. Mm-hmm. So I'm there the other night, and every time, this was a funny thing, every time I go, it's playing nice music, there's a screen, and there's this middle-aged guy's face on the thing, and he's talking to you. Hey, thank you, welcome, come into Araya Cleaners. And he's very distinctive, kind of silver-haired guy, well-dressed, whatever. And he's talking, and I'm there, and I hear this door open next to where I'm standing at the screen, and that guy in real life comes out. And I go, hey, it's you. And he goes, yeah, I'm the so-and-so. I'm the owner. It was like 10 at night.
Wow.
And
I love this story.
Yeah, he comes out, and I go, hey, dude, that's you.
Like,
and
you live in there?
I'm like, yeah, what are you, like, in there? And he's like, no, I'm coming to check on the machine, and I had to bring a delivery because someone's got to bring it, right?
Right.
And anyway, I was asking them that they advertise this service that they pick up and drop off at your house. And I'm wondering how I get signed up and blah. We go in this whole thing. And I said, hey, I love your concept here.
Yeah.
But what I like most of all is that you're actually here.
Yeah.
And that was just such a beautiful thing because, I don't know if he's getting rich or not. That's not really why he's doing it. But he's tried to have this concept and make it work in San Diego. Exactly. And he's got a number of kiosks. And
I've never heard of that. That's really interesting. I want to go check that out.
Yeah, Araya. It's an interesting concept, right? That, like, for people who pick up and drop off laundry on days and time of day when your dry cleaner's not open.
Yeah.
And then, and you get a text message that says that your laundry's ready.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's a day or two. And it's probably, I don't know how it compares cost wise. It seems reasonable to me. And you're paying for that convenience because I don't want to have to plan my life around when the dry cleaners are open.
Right. And he has to make sure that is all a big, well-oiled machine, or else it's just going to get bad reviews and people are going to knock it. They're not going to use it.
No, the first time you put your card in and it fails to return the clothes that you dropped off, you'll never use it again.
Right.
Then you got to be sending an email to customer support.
And that's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare, right? Yeah. So what he even does is I had this button, I didn't even know the button was missing. Got this note, complimentary button, free button, we attached it to your jacket.
Wow.
I was like, that's legit right there.
Really?
And that's that level of
because when the owner cares, everyone cares. Yeah. The vendors care. The employees care.
That's right.
Everyone cares. You can tell when there's a business where the owner is not present and doesn't care because the whole place is going to be like that.
Yeah.
It's not like some employee or some random person or even the vendors. Like if you're not on top of your vendors and because I'm sure, I have no idea how he does that, but just the cleaning and then the dropping off and all the different things, all of that has to work. And if you're not involved, it's probably not going to work. Or if it does, it does, and doesn't, it doesn't. And so definitely, I like that guy.
Yeah, I should actually have him on this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to, next time I go, I'm going to go on the website and see if I can send him an email. He's the distinctive silver-haired guy.
That is so funny.
But it's interesting too, because you hear about businesses that start and then they lose their way. Mm-hmm. Or like Apple, for example, like they started and then I think Steve Jobs either got fired or pushed out or something. And then he came back because the company had lost its way. Like it went through a period of time when they didn't have a clear vision, and he came back in and then, he passed away, but you could see where Apple is. And it's so, I always reflect on this. There's a great podcast called How I Built This, where they interview entrepreneurs. And most entrepreneurs like yourself have gone through failure after failure, challenge. Like there's no one who goes, it was really easy. I did this. And now I live on a Caribbean island. Right. I bought the island. Mm-hmm. I fly into it on my own plane. It's not that way. A lot of them had failed businesses before the high profile one that worked. And then they're the ones that everyone told them it was a ridiculous idea. Like, hey, I got a plan. There's going to be an app and, you can summon a car driven by a stranger and they'll drive you wherever you want to go.
Right.
Or, hey, here's one. You can rent out a room in your house to a stranger.
Yeah.
And they'll pay you for it. Like, where I grew up, that was like a recipe for a crime.
Exactly.
Like that was literally
inviting a serial killer to your house.
That was like stranger danger,
Yeah.
But yet we found a way with,
And no one else would even do that. Like, I'm not going to stay in someone's house. I don't even know them.
I'm not staying. What if the sheets are dirty? I'm like, okay, but you're also trusting that hotels clean their sheets. That's a different conversation. But it's just interesting, right? What businesses do and don't take off.
Yeah.
And even on that show, they actually talked to the founder of Netflix. And there was a time that Netflix offered to sell themselves to Blockbuster. Like this was in the early 2000s or so. It was when they were doing their when you could order the DVDs.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And they were like, yeah, they were a successful business, but they offered to sell themselves for, I can't remember, a few $100 million to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster wouldn't even take a meeting with them. And we saw how that turned out, right? And so they figured out streaming.
And then Blockbuster tried to do Redbox. They tried to copy Redbox. And that
they were a day late and a dollar short,
exactly,
right? And so by then, Netflix had dominated the streaming thing. Now no one ever does the DVDs anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And the rest is history. Now it's a multi-billion-dollar colossus.
Right.
So it's just interesting how these points come and you turn left or you turn right, and the impact that has over time.
Totally, yeah. That's one of the things. Even with my son, like he's going to be 25, and he's actually been working for us since he was in high school, or right when he graduated high school. So he does have a lot of experience, and he's doing really well. And he's got his own little specialties with the flight suits in the military and all that stuff. But he's not 100% ready for me to leave.
Right.
Because now you can work remotely, and a lot of my stuff I drop ship. Like I have a lot of customers that aren't even in San Diego. They're all over the country, even up in Northern California. I have a school up in Thousand Oaks. I do a ton of stuff for them. So if you really think about it, like to be there inside the shop is all about just for people who walk in and see your face and have a conversation with you. But probably 90% of my business is I could do it remotely. But I won't, and I don't, because I still have to be there. And I still have to, I'm still building it with him now. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't have all of the knowledge. There's some things he still doesn't understand or has to ask me or isn't sure about. So I don't want a customer to walk in and say, hey, I want to get this. And it's something I can answer in a heartbeat. And he's going to be like, let me call my mom. Hold on. You know what I mean? So
never say, let me call my mom.
So it's just, he's not ready.
Let me call the CEO real quick.
Yeah, he's not ready. So then, therefore, I'm not ready.
Right.
So, got to hang in.
So, I think that I'm so intrigued by this entrepreneurial piece and the misperceptions that people have about business. And we've talked about that a lot. But apart from the long hours piece, what do you think is an essential misunderstanding that people have about small business owners? Like when you're on an airplane, well, you never travel, but let's say you meet someone new and like, hey, what are you doing? You're like, I own my own business, and it's 41 years. They're thinking you're loaded.
Oh yeah.
And they're thinking, you got all this free time. But what's another misperception that they think that they have? Those are the big ones.
Yeah. Or a lot of people are like, well, you're a business owner, so that's just what comes with it. So you're just lucky. Or a lot of people, someone the other day was an online thing. And it was like a big discussion about the girl who owns In-N-Out Burger. Mm-hmm. And so she actually went to an interview, filled out an application, got hired, and started from the bottom, right? Because her father and grandfather would want her to do that. That's what they wanted to do. And she wanted to come in at the bottomest level, which is exactly what happened to me when I got, like after high school. Sure. And then I had my son. I my mom started me at filing at minimum wage. Like, you're starting filing. I was like, okay. But then I ended up taking over the whole office because I knew so much more than everyone else. But anyways, people really have this really strange thing about that. And I thought, people, I think when they think you have a small family business or something, I mean, obviously In-N-Out is not a small family business, but they started from nothing.
Yeah.
They started from just a roadside burger place. And then now it's multi-generational. So, but it takes so much to build that. I mean, they didn't start out as billionaires, obviously. And I don't think I'm not planning on being a billionaire or making my company into some massive franchise.
Sounds
or
exhausting being a billionaire anyway.
I
right?
know.
You're like, oh.
Yeah, totally. But I think a lot of people do think that I like just have this super pampered, luxurious life. And I tell people all the time, like, I would trade places with you any day just to be able to clock out.
Right.
Like, I can't, even when I'm on vacation. There's never been a vacation I've taken that I do zero work. Never. Ever. I wouldn't feel all the way relaxed if I didn't at least know, that's just how I am. I don't know. That's just how I am.
You're preaching to the choir in this room.
Okay.
Because
I thought you were looking at me like, what's wrong with you?
No. People look at me like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Around, right? But when you have
so much responsibility.
I think it's the lives of people, the lives and the livelihood and the families of people that I this is something that I've spoken about. Let's just call it what it is. Society isn't very kind to individuals in positions of leadership and business owners or leaders in an organization like ours, because there are all these assumptions that they have that are not based in fact. Like, you're rich, you have all this free time, you can work remotely, you just send a couple emails a day, and then you're on the golf course for 8 hours a day. You play 36 holes, and then you go to a bar. Yeah. Or like in a school leadership role, you give your own parking spot and this and that, and I'm thinking, yeah, there's obviously perks that come with these positions, but the level of the lack of, or there's just not much opportunity to turn off the switch. Oh yeah, right. There's just not, like, I'm going
especially
dark.
When you really care.
When you care, I think the caring is not a switch.
Right.
It's just not.
Nope.
And so you could officially be on a vacation day or tell, you're going to Vegas or whatever your thing is, but you're still there. You're still mentally connected, emotionally connected, and ready to troubleshoot from a distance. And, I think, you look at your life and, as you say, in a lot of cases, you'd want to trade places with somebody because you want to clock out. Yeah. And there's probably a part of you that wishes that your son maybe had an easier life than what you had to have and whatever. But, we all find our own path.
Right. It is what it is.
It is what it is. But I was chuckling the other day because I was having a conversation with somebody about I don't know, spring break or something. And I'm like, so first of all, most of the world doesn't get a spring break. That's a college, Fort Lauderdale, tequila shooters kind of thing. And I'm not saying teachers and others people shouldn't have them. I mean, it's part of the system we work in, but it's when I get a lot of work done on spring break and summer break, and those are the things that folks don't see, and they're not really seeing you working hard. Yeah. They may go buy your business. Your vehicle's not there. They think you're an absentee owner. You might be driving across town to. That's exactly what I'm doing. Actually, take uniforms and do this, do that. Go meet with your clients and say, hey, I hope this was. Can I fix this for you? Exactly. And that's all the stuff that kind of gets missed right in the simplification. And the truth is, America, the backbone of America is people like you. Yeah. Backbone of America is not Apple or Tesla. Yeah. It's not. We will definitely survive without them. I mean, well, and there's a whole host. I mean, most business in America is small business. It's like whatever, less than 10 employees. There's some crazy data around that. And the other piece is you don't have your money parked overseas and paying zero in taxes here and all that corporate piece, right? So that's really why I wanted to also have you on, apart from the partnership that Albert Einstein Academies has had with you, and you've been very generous with both uniforms for students and donations to our events and a great community partner. But apart from that, just to be a representative of small business is a really special thing. Definitely. And it is all about the relationships. I mean, for example, when we went into COVID and we were all working remotely,
I had to get a storefront for Albert Einstein because where else are they going to go? They have to go there to get the uniforms. Yep. Like, where else are they going to go? They have to do it. I've been doing Albert Einstein so many years. I've watched children grow up, adults come into my shop and say, hi, I used to come here when I was a kid. Or, multi-generational sometimes where, I've had a mom come in and be like, oh yeah, these one shirts were so great that my daughter's in high school and now I'm giving them to my kindergartner. Yeah. And, I've spent so many years knowing all these people and I truly care. So it's like that with actually all my customers. I don't want to let anyone down and they're dependent on me. So I want to make sure it all goes perfectly well. I have a catering company right now who's flying out to Paris for the Olympics, and they cater the entire Paris Olympics. And this is I've had a partnership with them since the 90s. My mom started with the original owner. And I did the Winter Olympics in Canada. It was so stressful. Trying to get all that out to go through customs and make sure it's there on a certain day and they can hold it for 30 days. I was like, do I need to fly out to Canada? What do I need to do? So just this order going, on Saturday to Paris, I was supposed to do a couple other things. I'm like, no, I just have to make sure this order gets done right. Everything's because I won't rest or be relaxed until I know it's good. So.
Well, you've been very generous with your time. I just have couple more questions for you. Okay. But where can people find you?
We are at 8219 La Mesa Boulevard in La Mesa. We're in the Village area.
And online at?
morgansmonograms.com.
Awesome. You're a sports fan? You like baseball? You ever been to a baseball game?
Oh, of course. I've been to it.
What would your walk-up song be? Because, that's the thing now, right? Every player has their own song that they play snippets of when they walk up to bat.
Oh, really?
Yes. What would your walk-up song be?
Well, gosh.
It's not a trick question.
No, I know, but I'm trying to think. So, you're talking about, what makes me move?
I don't know. If you were a Major League Baseball player. A song that represents you. I'm assuming they choose the songs because it's something they like.
Oh, really? You know what song? I really I have such a big love for music, and it's all over the place. One song that I love when me and my aunt get together, we listen to. It's called I think it's called a long cool woman or cool long woman, either long cool woman or something with a black dress. It's like a 70s.
Nice.
Do you know what song I'm talking about? You got to hear it.
I'll be looking it up.
It makes me dance.
Okay, that's your walk up song.
Yeah,
that's your walk up song. So I usually ask people on the podcast what if they could design a billboard for the world that sent their message out there about what they believe in, what that billboard would say. We're going to change it for you since you're in the embroidery and sign and that business. Mm-hmm. So you get to embroider a huge banner. You get to design a logo in your head with a message to the world about what you believe, about life, about business, about the way things should be. What does yours say?
The golden rule would be probably plastered all over that. That would probably be where I'd go with it. Treat people how you want to be treated. Treat people like gold, actually, is how I was raised. Yeah. And care about people, care about families, care about, you don't have to dedicate yourself to becoming, like a Mother Teresa or anything, but there's a lot of people I feel that are a little more self-centered nowadays as compared to when things used to be. It takes a village to raise someone and all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like carrying humanity, amongst everybody, even if you don't know someone or no matter what walk of life they come from, that's a big thing for me. Doesn't matter what walk of life anyone came from. I never think I'm better than anybody else. And that's super important to me because I don't like when, there's people that have complexes because they didn't come from, a certain place. And
Right.
if you knew any of my employees, I mean, they're straight from Tijuana. They've lived there their whole lives. I used to go down there and have carne asadas with their whole family. I loved them. They were the best. No matter who you are, where you come, they'd be like, she's the owner?
Yeah.
And she's coming to our house?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So what? Like, I'm nobody better than anyone else. Yeah. So yeah, let's eat some carne asada. Let's go. I'll have a beer too. So just being down to earth, grounded, open to just being kind, I guess.
That's a great way, I think, to end today with the golden rule, being grounded, being kind. I wish you all the best in your business.
Thank you.
We're going to link. We forgot to talk about the newspaper article, but we're going to link to that in the show notes. And I think you've got a news coverage coming up soon.
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. So we'll try to get that dropped in too and get that connected. So it's been a real pleasure having you here for a conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Look forward to the next 20 years.
I know.
Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Superintendent's Hangout. You can follow me on Twitter at DVS1970. Please be sure to share this show with friends and family on social media and in the real world. Thank you to Brad Bacayal for editing and production assistance, and to Tina Royster for scheduling and logistics. Thanks for hanging out, and have a great day.